Hello and welcome everyone to our Ask Me Anything series on BMS Mastery. So today we're going to be answering questions on sales. But first I'm going to introduce our panel of who we have here. I am Lynette Holzen. I am a software training consultant on the education team. I'm based out of Wisconsin and I've been with ConnectWise a little over 2 years on the education team. But prior to that, started in the MSP space as a ConnectWise admin. So I've set up a lot of this stuff and I just love helping partners improve their processes through ConnectWise. So hopefully we can help you guys today. And I'm joined by John. I'll let you introduce yourself. Sorry.
No worries, no worries. Hi, everyone. I'm Johnny McCormick, Senior Associate Partner Success Manager here at ConnectWise, based out of Tampa, Florida. BMS, me here on our team within Partner Success. Been at ConnectWise 10 years. Majority of that has been with our product support team, transitioned over to the Partner Success side roughly about 2.5 years ago. Love what I do within Partner Success, helping out partners, assisting with product utilization, and just still being in communication with you all. Spending time with my family and mostly cooking during my off time, mostly outside with the grill. So that's a little bit about me.
Thanks, Johnny. And then we are also joined by Parker. I'm not even going to try pronouncing your last name, man. I'm going to let you do that.
It's all good. Yeah. So my name is Parker Trojanowski, Senior Director of Product Management. And Johnny, you're getting me hungry talking about barbecue. As you can see, I love smoking meats myself. Absolutely. Also been with ConnectWise 10 years. So maybe it's that, 10-year ConnectWise history. But yeah, I've been here with ConnectWise again for 10 years, in charge of the PSA and CPQ products. Got a wonderful team, just doing a number of things to really hopefully make our partners more successful in the products, and really excited about the subject that we're going to get into today around sales.
Thanks, Parker. We do have a couple of questions to get the party started here. But if you have questions for us, feel free to drop them in that questions pod. We would love to get to what your burning questions are. Maybe we're covering them already, but these are some hot topics that we get asked a lot. So one of the first things we wanted to touch on was, how do I set up reoccurring products on an opportunity? I know we have those reoccurring products out there. They're great for adding to those agreements, but sometimes setting them up for the opportunity can get a little tricky. Parker, Johnny, any tips or tricks you want to give us?
Well, I'd say one of the things too is I talk to a lot of partners too that they've not touched their products since they first set up their ConnectWise, right? Back in the day, it was called ConnectWise, then Manage, now PSA, right? So I'm talking to the people that have been here for a while. They've got those products, but they only set them up for one time on the agreement side. They actually never went back and, when we introduced the recurring side of things, actually updated any of those, agreement line items with recurring. And I think that's important for a couple different things, especially if you're using things like CPQ, if there's any other integrations in place today, because it's good to kind of see that overall sales opportunity value. And if you combine that recurring for that particular line item with the actual periods, right? So it may be a monthly thing that you have set up, but by default, if you don't mess with it in the CPQ side and it passes over to the opportunity, it's going to default to 12 months. But you have the opportunity to set up terms in CPQ to say, hey, this is actually a 24-month or it's 36 months. And it's going to actually leverage that recurring that you've got set up on that particular product inside that product catalog. And one of the cool things too is we've actually updated it to actually put it up so where the recurring is actually right next to the one time when we are looking at our ASIO screen. So that way people may not miss it. Because I feel like that might be part of it too, is people may not even know that it's there. Because when you hit that, agreement line item and then it appears, you got to kind of scroll down to know that it's even there. So
Anything you want to add, Johnny? I do have the product currently up, so I'm showing the product catalog and you have it scroll down to see that reoccurrence pod. And of course, the product I'm currently showing is not enabled on, but once you enable it, you can definitely put all of that information out there.
Just to piggyback off Parker, it's about really just saving the clicks. When it comes down to partners, how can I save time? How can I not have to do multiple steps, and how can I do this in the beginning so I don't have to do this later, or how can I eliminate that user error factor? And like Parker said, majority of the time I'm dealing with partners that have had the product catalog as long as they had, ConnectWise or PSA now. And it's just going back in, doing the cleaning up, setting those recurring measures there. So now it saves you and your team, or it saves someone that, I didn't set this up. So now I have to go back into the opportunity or go to the agreement, whatever the case may be, to do that extra step. So it's all about saving the clicks and saving you all time, even if it's a few seconds. That's a few seconds per product that you're saving yourself in the future.
Definitely. And it looks like we have some questions rolling in. Maybe I'll grab a couple of these and then we'll get to some of the other ones we have. So the first question I have here is, do you have short-term plans to bring vendor purchasing with CPQ ConnectWise PSA in Canada? Last time I tried last fall, it was only available for US.
Yeah, so that's a good question. And one of the things we've done is that we've actually updated our Ingram API. So our Ingram API for CPQ has the ability to integrate with UK, Canada, US. So just make sure you're set up for the REST API for Ingram. It would have the ability to do electronic ordering. We've actually opened that up as well for all of our partners to be able to set up on their own. So I'd encourage you to go to the university and check that out. Tech Data should also work from a Canada perspective as well, from an ordering and real-time pricing also. So I would encourage you to check both of those integrations out from a CPQ perspective.
Thanks for that, Parker. So our next question is there a way to add products on an opportunity that will link to a current agreement and update the line items to a new price? For example, as it would be a renewal or current agreement. I'm not sure exactly what they're talking about there. So maybe Claire, if you want to put a little more clarification. Parker, Johnny, do you have any thoughts on what Claire's asking here?
If I'm gonna try and connect the dots here. I'm assuming this is where I've got an agreement that's already been established and it's been in place with that customer for a year or two, maybe 3, right? And it's now time to update it. So probably some sort of a new quote that was put into place for those particular products. And this gets interesting, right? Because when you get to an agreement, there are people that take 2 different tacks. Some people like to update the existing line item on there, which I don't love. I'd rather put an end date on some of those line items and do a new line item, especially for an update to an agreement for something like that. But again, people do have preferences sometimes because it's integrations, those types of things. So in that particular scenario, I think it would be more of, you would take the opportunity, you would update it, but then for the previous line items, you would have an end date for those. So you'd have a new start date for those products that you're transferring over to the existing agreement, but then you'd end those previous ones. So you have kind of a good transition, which would reflect the new pricing, those types of things for the things that you quoted. So again, I'm kind of, I think, trying to connect the dots there, and I think we answered the question. But if we need more clarification, definitely put it in the chat.
Thanks for that. So my next question here is, are Microsoft 360 products better to set up as non-inventory class or agreement class when you are wanting to integrate with CSP providers such as T-Synnex? Looks like you stumped Johnny.
I was thinking, because I'm taking into account of the ConnectWise Unite piece there, as you deal with the Microsoft panel and you're bringing in over those subscriptions, or you're bringing over those products, and they're being added to your agreement as additions there. So I'm leaning more towards the agreements, just thinking about my past calls and past product health checks, that with them being aligned and associated with the integration as agreements, then you'd want to set those up as agreement, with them being subscriptions, as recurring agreement subscriptions there.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think agreement type is the way you'd want to go for those. Because not only Unite, but now with UBI that we're introducing for ASIO to have those types of integrations to be able to update line items from, whether it be distribution or even from our marketplace, you want to make sure that those are there on the agreement side. So yeah, I'd agree with John and say probably an agreement type item is where you'd want to start for those.
Yeah, I definitely like the fact that agreements you can set up that automation to update those numbers so that you're not having to manually update those every month. So I am with you there. If products are set up as one time, what are the implications of changing those to recurring? We have products in agreement and invoicing plus used in CPQ quotes. So I guess this kind of speaks to what we're talking about, that you have these products that have been out there existing, but now you want to make them the reoccurring. Is there any downside to that? Is there any pitfalls that they might be tripping up on?
I would need to test within Trina to 100% confirm, but with that type of setting, I don't see that being like a retroactive. So, for example, if that product is listed on a service ticket and it's existing, me making that recurrence or recurring section and updating that, I don't see it going back and updating anything existing. So that's what we would say as retroactive, but it would affect anything moving forward. So now if I go and add that product on an agreement or on the next item within PSA, now it's taking on that recurrence. So if I added on opportunity, now I can see that recurrence there.
Yeah, so one of the things, especially because you mentioned CPQ, that you want to consider as well is your templates, right? Because you might have that product on multiple templates. And typically, if it was set up as a one-time, you'll likely have that particular cost and price in the one-time section as opposed to the recurring section. And then if you also have terms set up, right, which would say, hey, is it 12, 24, 36, monthly, or is it annual? Like those all would have to be looked at from a template perspective. So you definitely want to take a look at those to make sure that you have those up to date, because that would have an impact on how you're kind of calculating that quote value. Because you'd see up in the header, you'd see the one time, that number would shift over to the recurring. Because now if it's an agreement item, you can have one time, right, for a one-time initial payment for those recurring items. But a lot of times, if you're shifting that over, you're expecting that to be more of a monthly, quarterly, annual, depending on what your billing cycle is.
Great point about it.
There's probably somebody knocking on the door. You love live webinars like this, Lynette, when you got the dog in the background, you prepped, you got that peanut butter on the dog bone. Like, all right, be quiet, but it doesn't matter. It's gonna happen.
Yeah, neighbors coming and going. It's unfortunate, but yeah, this is a live webinar, so you get it unfiltered here. So our next question, now that he's quiet, what is the best way to set up a reoccurring product in CPQ? We have quotes that have one-time product and reoccurring options on the same quote. This is definitely a issue that I think there's a lot of workarounds. I don't know that there's a definitive one way or another. I've talked to a couple success managers that have a different way of setting things up. So I'd like to hear what you guys are suggesting.
Yeah, so I would say having an agreement type item set up inside of PSA is a great place to start. Having that recurrence also set inside of the product will be helpful, because if even one of your sales reps looks up that product and they pull it in, that recurring would pull in if it's already been established inside of the PSA. One of the things that also you may want to do, and it depends on how you're doing the recurring, if you don't override it in any way, shape, or form, it'll always default to kind of 12 months monthly when you're going over into the PSA. Typically, a lot of the templates, when they're initially set up with you by our consulting team, they'll have some of those defaults, and you can actually set up defaults at the tab level as well to say, hey, if you're adding something to this particular tab, if it's not set it to like monthly. So I would say definitely have the agreement line item set up, agreement type set up. Do the search, pull it in. You'll be able to see that in there, and then it'll pull that over into the quote appropriately. And you kind of have it set up right if it shows up in the top with recurring. And there's some good articles on term options set up in the university as well that you can definitely establish. And for those that haven't gotten into the virtual community, that's a great thing to actually talk about. Hey, how have you set this up? I've set it up this way. This is why I set it up this way. This is what I'm seeing because I want this result. Great way to talk to other partners out there that are doing a lot of the same things.
It's like that instant user group. You get to have that interaction all the time.
Yeah.
Well, and too, I think that's great because that kind of pulls into another question that we had kind of put out there, and I know we still have quite a few questions here to get to, but talking about those forecasts and the estimates on the opportunity. So setting that up with the reoccurring on the CPQ quote is going to make it more accurate for getting that into your sales funnel and seeing what those sales projections are looking like. I would like to add fields to our sales report, such as go live date. The field is on the opportunity, but not in the drop down of fields able to add. I would also like to set the date of the last activity on the opportunity.
Which can report
custom fields.
Yes, we could do custom fields, but if they're using a canned report that's already established within the reports there, system reports, then we wouldn't be able to add customizations. I wanted to see which report that partner was using. To go live, it mentioned that it was on the opportunity, but they're not seeing it on the report as a drop-down field, correct?
Yeah, that's what I heard.
So, Bob, if you want to give us a little more clarification on that question, we can come back to that. I have a question of, I keep scrolling. How can I attach a document to a ticket, like a SOP?
So I'm going to take it from the tact of maybe we're starting with an SOP that's on an opportunity. So when you convert it, typically you have an option to have those attachments go with it or not. You can, click that on or off. So if you were to convert, whether it be from here or the sales order, there should be an option. Now, if you've converted it to the sales order and didn't have that attachment in there, that could be a potential issue. But I'd say from a conversion perspective, it's usually there, or you just go directly to the ticket and could go to the attachments and attach it there as well. But I'm assuming since this is sales, we're starting from an op, so it's with that conversion, you should have the option to include attachments.
We recommend always starting from that opportunity, right? Get that information in PSA as soon as possible so that you can track it, watch what's going on. It looks like Bob is interested in the sales report, but I'm not sure which one still. So there's quite a few different. Reporting is not my forte. So I know there's quite a few of them out there, and I'm not sure what fields he's talking about. So maybe we will come back to that if he can give us a little more clarification. We are currently using tabs, but the transition to a PSA ticket is tough. We're exploring using projects, but there are some issues with how costs move over. I'm not sure what the question is here, Doreen. I, of course, love using projects and using those bundle class tickets to be able to convert our opportunity and our products into a sales order and then the project. I know if you use bundle class products, the items are going to come over as tickets with the time. Otherwise, it's generally going to come over as a fixed fee. So I'm not sure if that's maybe her issue, is that they're not wanting it to come as fixed fee. Doreen, if you have a little more clarification, that would be great.
So while we're looking maybe for some of that clarification, it looks like we have another question just related to the output from a CPQ perspective. And if there's any near-term plans to kind of update some of that. So we did in the virtual community kind of open up early access to a new editor which will allow you to really be kind of a true what you see is what you get. Because I know a fair amount of people don't necessarily like to dive into the quote editor and that PDF output and those types of things. So it has the ability to actually add images in there. You can have it next to text. So if you're looking to do more like proposals, statements of work, maybe a little bit of product in there, you can actually use that. And you'll see that more in a general release in the month of September. So we actually have our August release rolling out this week for CPQ, but in our September release, you'll actually have the ability to set by quote and quote template, whether you want to use that new editor or not. So that way you don't necessarily have to completely move for all the different things that you're putting together over to this new format where, again, you have a what you see, what you get kind of presentation layer to where you have a little bit more control from a sales rep and a user perspective. So if you want to update it with a little bit more flashy images and those types of things, you have the ability to do so. So that would be coming out in September.
Thanks for that. Do you suggest duplicating the product as a reoccurring product? So I think this is somebody who's talking about they have an existing product that was a one-time and now they want to make it a reoccurring. Do you think there's any value to duplicating that or just making the existing reoccurring?
Yeah, I think this goes back to what John was mentioning before, right? And I don't recall off the top of my head, if you already have that product that's active in there, whether that'll have repercussions if you swap it over. Let's assume that there is a repercussion of that. That would be the opportunity to actually duplicate it, right? So that way you can kind of let the one-time product that you had established run its course with the things that you already have associated with maybe a project, a ticket, those types of things, but then you can transition it over to an agreement type item. So that is something I probably, John and I need to follow up on and can probably continue the conversation in the virtual community and provide an answer on for sure.
Great plug there, Parker. And I do have a post already for this webinar out there. So hopefully we can just continue the conversation right in there. I have another question here. Can you add a picture to an item in the ConnectWise product catalog, or can it only be added in CPQ?
Yeah, it's a good question. That is actually something we are working on to introduce into the PSA. So as we've kind of introduced this ASIO vendor catalog and managed labs, you'll see that there is an image associated with that particular product. It just isn't necessarily coming over into the your product catalog for the things that you're reselling. So that is something we are looking to get added, so that way it can be recognized by CPQ. You'll have to set it up once as opposed to maybe adding it every single time or establishing it in a template. So great question.
Looks like we're confusing Paula with our acronym. So PSA is the ConnectWise managed product, or ConnectWise product that it was formerly known as managed. We have rebranded that to PSA. CPQ is the ConnectWise product formerly known as Sell, and an SOP is a standard operating procedure. At least to the best of my knowledge, unless there's anything that you guys are different about SOP. But generally, in this instance, that was my expectation.
Yep, I would agree.
And depending on how far we take it back, we can go with Quozon as well.
That takes the back, and back when Manage was just ConnectWise.
Yeah.
So I have a question here that I think we can start the discussion here, but I think, Christy, this is a great question to take to the virtual community because I have some thoughts on it, and I know when I've been at user groups, I've definitely gotten some different takes on it. So she's asking, who is responsible and at what point should a configuration be set up for new licenses and warranties? Who should be responsible? Sales, purchasing? I know we've had this discussion within education a couple of times, trying to figure out, what should be best practice and what should be the recommendation. And we just really haven't settled on anything. So I'd love to hear some thoughts, and definitely something, Christy, take to the virtual community and see what everybody else is doing. Before we wrap up, I do have a question here. What is the ASIO screen you speak of? I've been saving this one for last because it's going to be in depth. It's definitely kind of that roadmap.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, I get that a lot. Like, what is ASIO? How do I get access to ASIO? Those types of things. There's a couple things going on right now, right? So one is we've made some of the screens available to our partners in the cloud that are set up with CWSSO. So if you're in the cloud with CWSSO, you can actually go to your managed labs, and you'll actually have the ability to turn on things like project management, or you have the ability to turn on things like procurement. And that's what I was mentioning is procurement module where you have the product catalog. You can actually turn that on, and you can see the new look and feel of what we are introducing into ASIO. We've actually started providing kind of a preview of what PSA is going to look like in ASIO for some of our partners in North America, and that will continue over a period of time. So more information will definitely be coming out on that, just as it relates to PSA and ASIO. But for those that are using it in the cloud with SSO turned on, you'll actually have the ability to kind of preview some of those screens, provide us feedback in the virtual community. We're making regular updates on some of the things we've made available there. We have made a couple things even additional made available in ASIO for those two in the preview, like time agreements is in there. We've got configurations in there. Sales opportunity, the start of that is available. So it's kind of cool. Again, there is a lot to that question, but for those that care about like, hey, how can I see what's there inside of PSA? It's there behind a managed lab, and it does tie into your roles as well. So for your members, so that way you don't necessarily have to expose it to all of your different members that you have set up inside of the PSA and freak them out and say, wait a second, I see 2 menu entries, and what's this one all about? Does that change my process? Slow down, right? As an administrator, I can, have control. I can kind of see what's out there. I can give access to, certain roles so they can see those new screens before we maybe roll it out to everybody. So that was just to kind of give everybody a taste of some of the stuff that we're doing inside of ASIO and deliver that inside of PSA. So perfect. Lynette's going in there and showing you how to go in, and you can see anything that kind of preview, it says ASIO in front of it. You can turn on some of those items and take a look at it. So that's what we were talking about when I said, some of the new ASIO screens, we've kind of changed the look and feel of it. That's what that is.
Then you can see here in the menus that it does show up projects ASIO, project board ASIO. Anything you do in ASIO is still duplicated. It's in the data, it's in the database anyway, so it's going to be in that regular as well. So if you don't give all of your sales reps maybe access to it, because that is something that you do also have to turn on a security role for as well. So not only do you have to activate it, you also have to give them permissions in the security role. So you can pick and choose when to start using the new one.
Yeah, the existing projects that I already had set up are there, or the existing products that I already had set up are there, and you can see what it looks like in that new interface. So great point, Lynette.
It just makes your list a lot longer, but it's fine. Look at the new sales order. It's definitely a clean, streamlined look that I greatly appreciate personally.
And one of the things we're really trying to do is, for those that are leveraging projects, and I know we're not necessarily diving into some of those things, right? But we're really trying to make it more efficient, right? We've got flyouts so you can see, what's going on for that particular ticket, set up those dependencies, enter my time, those types of things right there. So, but since this was related to sales, right? So sales order, yes, is there. For some partners, we also have, again, procurement, which is the core, right? Products touch everything. Right.
And that one is coming up in a couple weeks, I believe. So not next week, but the week after. The Ask Me Anything series is going to be talking about procurement and products. So if you are interested in seeing more on that, definitely join that one in 2 weeks with Neil. we are at our time here. Thank you everyone for joining. There's definitely a lot more questions here in the pod, so I will pull those down and get with Parker and Johnny, and hopefully we can get some answers out in the virtual community for everyone. Feel definitely check out that post. I will put the recording of this out there as well. For those of you who haven't signed up for everything, this is the QR code for the rest of those sessions. Like I said, next week is quoting, and then I believe after that is products and procurement. So hopefully we will see everybody again.
Thanks so much for joining us. Thanks for all the questions. See you soon.